Hello, my name is Paul Ray. I sit here today to explain what I hope to achieve in the coming months, and if need be, in the coming years. Please excuse me from reading from a script. I don't have a teleprompter. But first, let me explain my situation. I am one of the million Kiwis stuck overseas because the government of New Zealand, through its inadequate MIQ system, prevents us from returning. Why should we be allowed to return, some may ask? Because it is enshrined in our Bill of Rights, because a New Zealand passport promises passage without delay or hindrance, and because it is enshrined in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which New Zealand has ratified. And finally, it is reinforced in the Immigration Act, which says New Zealand citizens may enter and be in New Zealand at any time. If the government is using Section 5 of the Bill of Rights, that is, allows the rights and freedoms protected by the Act to be subject to reasonable limits, and so to use this MIQ system through the Public Health Response Act to protect the health and well-being of New Zealanders, then I have some issues with that. How can vaccinated people overseas be denied entry while the government allows for unvaccinated people into the country? Multiple sports teams and entertainers into the country who are non-citizens and do not have the same protection of right of entry. To let them into New Zealand ahead of those who have the right of entry and, in most cases, vaccinated. This has been at the cost of New Zealanders who have a right of entry, made worse because a good portion of us are vaccinated. And I ask, how many of the non-citizens were vaccinated? If entry is about risk to the country, why would you allow unvaccinated people in and deny entry to those who are vaccinated? By the way, I'm triple vaccinated. I don't think anybody in New Zealand yet has had 3 shots. I've been trying since April 2020 to get back. Unfortunately, my first trip in April 2020 could not be completed because I had a new diagnosis of cancer. I was advised not to fly, and I saved the New Zealand health system tens of thousands of dollars by getting my treatment overseas. The next time, in July 2021, I had secured a bed in MIQ, only to have Fiji Airlines cancel the flight on me. So I couldn't get back, and I still can't get back. Almost everyone knows the government closed the MIQ bed system. Now that MIQ is now up and running again, it is still not able to keep up with demand. And the government has made it a lottery system for its allocations. And that is everyone together, non-citizens with citizens. New Zealand citizens competing for return with non-citizens. This will, at this time, be my second Christmas without being with my family. In recent months, both my wife and I were trying to get back. She wanted to see her daughter and elderly parents. Alas, she died suddenly. Sadly, her parents will never get to see their daughter. Our daughter will never get to see her mother. But she gave me inspiration before she passed. She said to me, if you don't like something, do something about it. And with those words, I am here today, hopefully to do something about it. What I do know, though, is if we had been able to return, she would be more than likely be alive today. But let me get back to what I am here for today. The first item is that I think it is time someone needs to take action against the government to get our people home. Quarantine bed or not, if there is no space in the inn, then they should be allowed to quarantine at home. So with that, I have the name of a lawyer who will take a case. I have decided not to pursue this myself for personal reasons, but understand that someone may. Please email me if you want that person's details. It would also be nice if it was a class action lawsuit so that we can all join in and get people home. New Zealanders have a right of return, and New Zealanders should come first. I would also appreciate your stories of your trials and tribulations of trying to get home. Please email me your story and contact details. And before you go, if you agree with what I am about to talk about, please like the YouTube and subscribe. There will be more YouTube blogs coming from this YouTube channel. The second reason I am here is I believe it is time for a change in New Zealand. I do not recognise my own country. Its racist policies, its lack of a full democracy, are some of the things that need to be corrected. So we are going to form, at the moment, an informal group of followers who subscribe to the values I'm about to set out. Firstly, we need to get back to a full democracy. What do I mean by that? Well, at the moment, only 60 members of Parliament are elected to their seats in Parliament. The other 60 seats are allocated from a party list. Think cronyism here. Only those who do party favours ever get to be on that list. Half a democracy. Only half of the MPs represent a constituency. 60 people talk and make laws without any common folk ever voting for them. Secondly, we have a racist country. Laws, rules, and policies that are racially based. That has to stop. In this enlightened age, there should be no discrimination of any sort. How do we sort it? I'm hoping with the emails I receive that I will get an idea from people that it is time for a change. To get your stories and to get a sense of support to head New Zealand down a different path. Primarily, it is to end the hypocrisy of what people think is equality under the eyes of the law. Once I have an idea of numbers, we can perhaps move forward with a planning symposium. Before this though, I intend to get a website up and running, a place for members to gather, and to put comments and thoughts on a forum page, to receive updated news as it comes to hand, and to keep me abreast of your stories and comments. So let me explain some of the ideals and ideology. Firstly, we have a set of core values. From these core values, we develop objectives and policies. Our core values start with democracy. Full and unabashed democracy. No cronyism. One person, one vote. Every politician representing a constituency. Rights for everyone and applied equally. No special treatment to any group or person. No discrimination based on race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, sexuality, or gender. To do what is fair and reasonable. Minimal government in people's lives. A free market economy. A recognition and a need for excellence. And a need for self-responsibility. So it is with these values we would seek to either influence a political party, to adopt these principles, or to seek to form our own. We have three main objectives to complete, and the rest should fall into place. The three main objectives are to form or endorse a political party which will bring New Zealand back to a full democracy. To introduce a constitution for New Zealand which outlines how a government is to be formed how the government is to act, placement of rights in the Constitution for the protection of people and business, and how a military is formed and the limitations to be placed on the military. And finally, a constitutional court, ruling on matters of constitutionality and having a power to determine if the laws being made are constitutional. How do we do this? Because we are a people of many nationalities, are now divided by racial laws and policies. Favouritism is rampant. By example, the Wiggles managed to get MIQ beds with the government interference, when these beds may have been better used to get Kiwis home. Another example, Maoris vaccinated ahead of more needy persons, and so it goes on. I don't feel the government is working for us, the citizens of New Zealand. It chooses to ignore the rights of returning Kiwis, turned its backs on it. But with your support, we can change this in a future New Zealand, where there will be constitutional rights. These rights would be to protect the liberty and livelihoods of every New Zealander, based on what is fair and reasonable. You have to make some noise to be heard. I hope they get to hear this noise. The future, my fellow Kiwis, is up to us. Any government who uses methods such as laws, orders or policies to nullify what is written down in our Bill of Rights should be concerned, because we are all concerned. Clearly, there is a groundswell of opposition to this government and how it treats us, its 1 million exiled Kiwis. I urge you to go to groundedkiwis.com to fill out the surveys and complete any petition to the government. They are the biggest organised group to represent exiled Kiwis. It is no small step that this government has done to violate the rights of Kiwis wishing to return home. If they get away with this, where will it stop? But also, this is not about whether the New Zealand government is right or wrong. This is about our future. And so, if we have a groundswell to make a better New Zealand, I will make a promise. New Zealanders will always come first. New Zealand belongs to New Zealanders. The government serves us, or it should. Let's not leave one New Zealander behind. If New Zealanders can get back, they should be able to come back. No questions asked, no mandates, no closing the border to returnees. Horror stories abound of people who could not get home. The indifference the government shows to its own people. This government is callous and cruel. I've seen more love in a dead man's arms than those leading us. It uses the army against its own people, making guards of the military personnel. These jobs could have and should have gone to civilian personnel. The army should never be used to guard or control its own civilian population. Only despotic regimes do that kind of thing. Nor should the police be used to interfere with the rights of people in a democratically elected government. Albeit that the New Zealand government is only half a democracy, the Bill of Rights, Section 18 details, 1. Everyone lawfully in New Zealand has the right to freedom of movement and residence in New Zealand. I repeat, freedom of movement. Every New Zealander has the right to enter New Zealand. Clearly, New Zealand citizens have the right of return according to the Bill of Rights. Everyone has the right to leave New Zealand. If you don't like it, you can leave. No one who is not a New Zealand citizen and who is lawfully in New Zealand shall be required to leave New Zealand, except for under a decision taken on grounds prescribed by law. These rights should not get suspended. Have they been suspended? I don't know. If they are suspended, then what is the point of having a Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights, I proffer, was to prevent exactly what has happened in New Zealand. Clearly they have not. It is for this reason we need a constitution and a constitutional court. The Bill of Rights has not been working for New Zealanders. The police now have unprecedented powers, the right to enter any household, day or night, without a warrant. They stop people and ask after their business. Section 18 would say that we have a freedom of travel in New Zealand, and that means without undue hindrance. But that is not the case today. Nor should roadblocks by civilians be endorsed by the police. This smacks of things that happened in a different era. Where have we heard papers, please? It is usually in draconian regimes. Even if a national emergency is declared, we should still have rights. And without affecting anyone else, the right to freedom of movement. I want to talk about business in New Zealand. We have already stated that we stand for a free market economy. With that goes the right for all business to expect equal rights in relation to taxation. We would not have different tax rules for different business. And in these trying times when people are asked to stay at home, we would allow all businesses to be open. It should be a right, if not already, for every New Zealander to earn a livelihood. No discrimination, no favouritism. There may be restrictions imposed on numbers, masks, distancing, but in essence, every business should be able to not only earn an income, but to keep its employees so that they are able to earn their livelihood. It makes no sense for a supermarket to be allowed to be open while the greengrocer across the street has to close and waste tens of thousands of dollars by throwing out his food. Do what is fair and reasonable, no discrimination. Equality means equality. We are all supposed to be equal under the eyes of the law. But the government's policy of only keeping open what they deem essential is favouritism and discrimination. Big players get to play ball, while the smaller player gets to suffer and be sidelined. And not to mention the forced reduction in one's livelihood. So I'll wind up this YouTube. Next time I want to talk about the Treaty of Waitangi and what a constitution will mean for the treaty and what will happen for all New Zealanders under a constitution. I wanted to also talk about data collection and monitoring, warrantless searches of houses, freedom of speech, airline refunds. Beyond that, there are many more issues I will want to talk to. I know some will agree and some won't. But it comes back to our core values and how to have a more free and fair society in New Zealand. I urge you to press the like button below and subscribe if you want to hear more. We seek a true and full democratic country. New Zealand, more than ever, needs a new direction. If you're going to comment, please be civil. And finally, here is the GoFundMe website and the email address should you need to send more in-depth comments and stories. You'll see on the screen permutationnz@gmail.com for the email address, and gofundme.me 85381D5F will also appear on the screen. This is going to take a lot more than one person. If you're unhappy with the way things are developing in New Zealand, please at least let me know. Send your stories, your ideas. One doesn't have to have a degree to have a good idea. A website will come soon, hopefully by the year's end. Let's take back New Zealand and have the government work for us for a change. Please help me in this fight.